Castlevania Nocturne is the sequel to Castlevania. I really liked Castlevania, so I'm gonna watch this too. Will it live up to the glory of the original series? Let's find out. Season 1, Episode 1, A Common Enemy in Evil. We begin in the great city of Boston in 1783. America has just won the Revolution. Julia Belmont is sending her son Victor Belmont to France for his safety. However, they are out of time as Olrox, a Native American vampire, arrives to enact revenge against Julia. Despite their efforts, Julia is killed in front of Victor's eyes. Olrox spares Victor but plans on killing him eventually when he is on his quest for revenge. 9 years later in France, the French Revolution is in full swing, and Victor is raised by a speaker magician named Tara and lives with her daughter, Maria. Maria is trying to rally support behind the revolution, but it seems trouble follows Victor wherever he goes. Maria has the powers to allow her to conjure animals to fight for her, so basically she's a Terrarian summoner. Victor uses his mother's whip but is unable to use the magic of his ancestor Cypher ever since his mother died. One of the vampires warns of a vampire messiah, which is quite concerning, so Victor and Maria report it to the abbot of the local church. It is also shown that there are vampires everywhere, especially in the bourgeoisie. At their home, Victor, Maria, and Tara once again ambush, but this time by night creatures. They are saved by Annette and Edouard from the Caribbean, who state that there must be a forger master in the area to create these night creatures, and also they have arrived because of the incoming vampire messiah. A perfectly average pilot episode where we are introduced to the main characters and are informed about the story and situation. The animation and action are beautiful so far, which is to be expected from Powerhouse. Other than that, it doesn't do too much else, which is fine. But let's see how these characters and the plot develop as we move forward. Season 1, Episode 2, Horror Beyond Nightmares. A representative of the vampire messiah named Jolta arrives in Paris. We learn Annette is a former slave who took part in the slave uprising in the Caribbean, so she knows a thing or two about revolution. She says the name of the vampire messiah is Elizabeth, which sends Tara into a panic. In a flashback, we learn she grew up in a Russian village with speaker magicians. A raid led by Jolta led to the capture of her sister, and when she went to rescue her in Elizabeth's dungeons, it was already too late. She warns them of Elizabeth's unrelenting bloodlust as she has seen it firsthand. Maria buries one of her animals, showing that they mean a lot to her, and also Edouard sings. I sure hope you like opera. They plan to attack the vampires at their palace, and Annette shows off her spiritual magic. At the palace, she sees the vampire that enslaved her and her mother, and her anger gets them seen. As Annette rebuilds the bridge, Edouard is captured, and she helplessly watches him get taken, something she feels immensely guilty for. We learn that the abbot and the church are evil. What a shock. Not only that, but they are the ones forging the night creatures, which now includes Edouard. Another average episode where nothing much happens. The pacing is quite slow, which is fine, but I hope the plot starts moving quicker since we'll be here forever. We learn about Tara's background, which is nice, and Edouard becomes a night creature. That's basically it. Season 1, Episode 3, Freedom Was Sweeter. It's time for an extended flashback. This time we are learning the story of Annette as she mourns the loss of Edouard. The vampire plantation owner killed her mother in the middle of the night after discovering she was trying to cast spells. Victor sympathizes with her experience, of course. Before she's branded, Annette awakens her magical powers and flees the plantation with some very nice animation. She meets Edouard as she hides in his opera house. He, pretty conveniently, has experience in hiding runaway slaves, so he helps her escape from the grasp of her master. Then, the day of the rebellion arrives. They burn Saint-Domingue to the ground, including the plantation. Annette confronts her former master, but he turns into a bat and escapes like a coward. They learn about the Vampire Messiah through visions of the future, Attack on Titan style, so Annette and Edouard set off to stop her in Europe before she can conquer the rest of the world. Olrox warns a church knight named Mizrak that Elizabeth will soon turn on their alliance with the abbot. I wonder, what is Olrox's role in all this? Annette leads a revolutionary speech to a mid-ass crowd as the abbot leads an anti-revolutionary speech in the safety of his church. Where is it safe from? His creations. They fight against the night creatures once more, but this time Annette recognizes Edouard, who turns out to have a mind of his own. First of its kind. The power of opera singing, I guess. Once again, I feel like we haven't gotten anywhere. Most of this episode is a flashback for Annette, which on its own is fine and dandy, but the plot also needs to move more than what it's doing. The only notable thing that happens in the present is Annette seeing Edouard as a night creature. That's it. Come on, Castlevania Nocturne. Let's pick up the pace. Season 1, Episode 4, Horrors Rising from the Earth. Our heroes devise a plan to infiltrate the church since they suspect that the church is working with the vampires, and Annette also wants to either save Edouard or mercy kill him. Tara knows of a secret underground passageway to the church apparently, so that is where they'll start. We are then jump scared by two naked men in bed together. Please tell me, where the hell did this come from? Drota arrives at the church to confirm the alliance with the abbot. She also wants to see the night creatures they have been making. All at once, everyone converges in the dungeons of the church. Annette hears Edouard singing, of course, so she goes to rescue him while Richter, Maria, and Tara fend off the night creatures. They run into the abbot, who is shocked, and Drota, who is thirsty for blood. The abbot prevents Drota from killing Maria since she is a child. Does he actually have some wolves? Annette prepares to kill Edouard, but that's not what he wants apparently. She's then thrown into a fight with Drota. Richter, feeling confident than ever, here's the one thing that can break him.
Little boy Belmont, all grown up.
We have to go. We have to get out of here. We have to fucking go!
They all retreat due to Richter's panic attack, and Annette is pissed at him for running away. Okay, that was decent. Richter encountering Olrox again was very cool to see and shows that he is not over his fear of him or the death of his mother. Along with a good fight sequence to accompany it, I'd say this episode is doing fine. Season 1, Episode 5, The Natural Order. Richter runs all the way to a lake where he cries due to the fear and grief he still bears. Angered at Richter's fear, Annette decides to follow Drota and Olrox, and she eventually finds her former master casually feeding on someone in the graveyard. Convenient. She traps him with iron crosses and eventually reaps her sweet revenge. Before he died, the vampire says how the Vampire Messiah drank the blood of Sekhmet, an Egyptian goddess, and how she will bring eternal night for the vampires. The abbot arrives at Tara's house to attempt to explain himself. He has become a forge master, forging night creatures for Elizabeth and the vampires as a way to destroy the rebellion that has disrespected Christianity. This guy's a lunatic. He literally made a deal with the devil that is a far bigger threat than any group of humans could ever be. Oh yeah, and he's Maria's father. Cool. Keeping with the theme of long-lost relatives, Richter enters a village and meets a good-looking old man. Who can do this? Yep, he's a Belmont, and Richter's grandfather. I actually enjoyed this episode a good bit more than the others. I like seeing Annette get her revenge, and despite the clichéness of the long-lost relative, I did like the reveal of Juiced Belmont, and also he is oozing with Trevor's personality, which means we'll finally have a really entertaining character. At least I hope. Season 1, Episode 6, Guilty Men to be Judged. It's finally time. All the vampires have been gassing up the Messiah, and now she is finally here. Richter learns that Juste has been living close by, watching over him his whole life in France. He was once the most powerful magician ever in the Belmont clan, until he lost his powers. Sound familiar, Richter? The loss of his wife and only friend at the hands of vampires broke his powers. This has turned him into a cynical old man who believes that no matter how many times evil is defeated, it will always return. In his eyes, evil always wins. Annette talks to her ancestors and fallen comrades for guidance, and they encourage her to keep fighting using the powers she has been blessed with. Olrox tells of his only love back in the New World, another Native American, whom he turned into a vampire and was then murdered by Julia Belmont. Meanwhile, Edouard tries to bring the life back into the night creatures who guard him. Maria confronts her father for his actions, but they are interrupted by the arrival of Elizabeth. As Richter and Just begin to bond over Julia, they are ambushed by a bunch of vampires sent by Drolta. They capture them both, but when all hope is lost,
There's something you forgot about Belmont's. Stupid of me. I'd forgotten it too. Fuck it.
okay, I'm giving this a pass. I don't care how corny or cliche this scene is because it is absolutely spectacular. I love this rendition of Divine Bloodlines so much. This is the best scene in the show so far, and this episode is also the best so far, with everything slowly but surely building up to an encounter with the Vampire Messiah and the Eternal Night. I'm glad to say that Castlevania Nocturne is on the right track. Season 1, Episode 7, Blood is the Only Way. The vampires continue to celebrate the arrival of Elizabeth, and Olrox begrudgingly bows to her as she desires to conquer the New World as well. Richter reunites with Terra, Maria, and Annette, which spawns a small romantic spark between Richter and Annette. Interesting. Elizabeth demands the absolute loyalty of the abbot, so she proposes that he sacrifices someone he loves to her. Like her daughter, perhaps. Meanwhile, Mizrak is getting more and more frustrated at the abbot's alliance with Elizabeth. As our group is forming a plan, Olrox makes a surprise appearance and leaves behind the guidebook to the machine that creates night creatures. What a nice guy. Maria, for some reason, sneaks into the church to try to save her father, but she walks into his trap and gets captured. Genius. Terra figures out that they need to open a portal to hell and push the night creature machine back to where it came from. Seems legit. Mizrat arrives at Terra's house to warn them that Maria has been captured by the abbot, and at the same time, Elizabeth uses the power of the Crimson Bela, this flying black orb, to do the impossible. Not again. With Elizabeth granting her vampires an eternal night, it seems the struggle to save Maria and destroy the night creature machine will be greater than anticipated. Will this season finale give us a satisfying and epic ending? Let's see. Season 1, Episode 8, Devourer of Light. Elizabeth transforms into her true form, being reborn in the image of Sekhmet. Our group makes it to the church to fight the abbot's horde of night creatures as Terra saves Maria from her father, and Annette makes her way to the night creature machine. Terra uses the book and begins to open the portal to hell next to the machine. Annette finds Edouard still in his cell, and he requests to stay there since his singing is restoring life back into these night creatures, and some of them are beginning to make their own decisions. Drolta arrives and she has an epic duel with Richter. Olrox is also watching over the fight, protecting Mizrak. It seems he has turned too. However, everything stops. Unfortunately, Elizabeth is using creative mode and cannot be harmed in the slightest. She sets her eyes on Maria, which forces Terra to stop the process of opening the portal in order to save her daughter. Elizabeth explains that she doesn't want to kill Maria, she wants to grant her eternal life. Oh boy. Olrox teleports Mizrak away, saving him but pissing him off in the process. Annette cannot push the machine into the portal in time, and Terra decides to sacrifice herself instead of her daughter, since the abbot loves her as well, and she will be a powerful vampire due to her magic. Elizabeth obliges as the rest of her family looks on in horror. Annette makes an escape room for them to flee as Terra gets turned into a vampire with the consumption of Elizabeth's blood. Drolta is not going to let them get away that easily, so she hunts them down and is ready to kill.
Dracula, and if you fight me, you will die like thousands of vampires before you.
Finally, a great character. In all honesty, it's not surprising Alucard is here since this is like a major vampiric event, so it's not completely out of nowhere. With that said, I'm happy to say that this season finale was pretty good. Of course, it's carried by the action, but this also had some meat on it too, with Tara's sacrifice, Adroa's mission, and our group's first encounter with Elizabeth. This has successfully set up a possibly great season 2. I just hope it follows through and is as finely crafted as peak Castlevania was. Number 5. Horrors Rising from the Earth. Number 4. The Natural Order. Number 3. Blood is the Only Way. Number 2. Guilty Men to be Judged. Number 1. Devourer of Light. Castlevania Nocturne Season 1 has an average rating of 8.06 per episode. While starting out slow and rough, the first season of Castlevania Nocturne came together in the end to create an overall enjoyable season. The biggest problem is the writing. It just feels off. The writing in the original Castlevania wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it was solid and the characters were very entertaining and intriguing. Unfortunately, Nocturne falls short of that. The characters, I find, are just not as entertaining, interesting, or funny as in the original series. Motivations are wonky and things kinda just happen without much to support it. The voice cast is also decent. Not incredible, but not horrible. However, when it comes to the technical aspect of this show, it delivers the highest quality. The animation and sound design are gorgeous, ranging from crazy detailed backrooms to fluid and dynamic fights, and that's where this show, like its predecessor, shines the most. I just wish the writing was as good as the animation. Overall, I didn't hate the first season at all. Personally, I liked it. But that's about it. I hope next season the writing will be more polished and we will see these characters evolve further and be more entertaining beyond the fights. I give Castlevania Nocturne an 8 out of 10.